On this episode of the podcast, we are talking to Daniel Willis, the co-founder and CEO of Claxon, a digital growth agency based on the Gold Coast in Australia. Daniel, as the CEO, has a career's worth of experience being involved in the C-suite or as the CEO of several large corporations. So he has a lot of information to pass on to other fellow business owners and CEOs. We also talk about the role of a CEO in an organization. We talk about the importance of digital marketing and how an agency is often the best solution for businesses. We then also talk about how business owners can best go about finding the right agency to help them. And we talk about a very big announcement that Daniel has just made, which you will need to listen in to find out more. Stay tuned. It's a cracker of an episode and it's coming right up. Welcome to Digital, a podcast brought to you by AttentionMedia, a location-agnostic digital growth agency helping businesses become iconic brands. On this show, we dive into the hottest topics, the latest updates, and what's working in social media and digital marketing right now to get you up to speed and keep you informed. And if you want to grow your business through strategic digital marketing, head over to attentionmedia.com.au, click on the Book a Discovery Call tab, fill out some details, and we'll be in touch. We'd also love to know if you're listening to this show. So please take a screenshot, upload it to your preferred social media account, and tag us at Attention Media Agency. Let's get into the show. Mr. Daniel Willis, thanks very much for joining us on Digital, mate.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Anthony.
Mate, it's exciting times in your life and your career at the moment, mate, and we'll definitely get into that. But for anybody who isn't aware, mate, can you please give us a little bit of an introduction and tell us all about the business that you are CEO of?
Sure. So my name's Daniel Willis, and I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of Claxon. We are a digital growth agency. We're about 3.5 years old, which has been a really interesting ride for me. I never came from the world of digital at all. I'm not even much of a social media user myself. So it's been a really interesting experience over the past 3.5 years. And I'm sure we're sort of going to get into that, as we go along. But previous to this, I spent a few years as a CEO in the finance world, and previous to that, as a GM in the medical devices world. So it's been a bit of an interesting sort of career trajectory for me, but the past 3.5 years has been really interesting. I've never been involved in an industry before that's really sort of in that golden era or that sort of that start of that growth. Yeah. I've always sort of missed out, and I've always come into industries, 15, 20 years after kind of the golden era. Mm-hmm. So it's really exciting to be in digital at this time.
Yeah, mate, and that was one of the things that I'd love to touch on. Like you'd certainly have a decorated career in in management, business building, and in roles as CEO across multiple different industries. So, but one thing, obviously, just so that everybody's aware, Claxon is definitely one of Australia's premier agencies. You're a multi-award-winning digital agency. You're an agency that we look up to as an aspiring startup, and I think you really set the tone and set the pace when it comes to how digital can best be used to help businesses grow their revenue and grow their profits. So, and in the space of, as you said, 3.5 years, that's a very big, well done and pat on the back, mate. It's a big achievement.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. It certainly hasn't been easy, and I think that one of the challenges for me has been not coming from the digital world, but one of the benefits and what's allowed us to achieve what we have is the fact that I haven't come from the digital world at all. Mm-hmm. So it's been a little bit of a double-edged sword there, but I'm really proud of sort of what we've done in a short period of time, especially being based on the Gold Coast. I mean, you're in Shepparton, you know exactly sort of what that's like. Traditionally sort of an agency world, if you're not in Melbourne, traditionally followed then by Sydney and then by Brisbane, it's really hard. And I know it would have been, much harder for you being located where you are. For us, being located on the Gold Coast has been both a blessing and a challenge. Yeah. And the blessing has sort of really been that we've been insulated. So we've really been protected from there being a ton of talent on the market. And what I seem to find happens in Melbourne and Sydney and Brisbane is people move from agency to agency to agency to agency, and everything becomes pretty homogenized. Approach to strategy becomes homogenized because it's a combination of all these different agencies, because everybody sort of moves around a lot. On the Gold Coast, there's no real talent pool here. This has been one of our biggest constraints, but it's been one of the biggest blessings because we've been operating in a little bit of a bubble, and not knowing how the agencies in Sydney and Melbourne and in Brisbane have done things. So we've just had to kind of forge our own way, and we're just fortunate that our own way has been different and ultimately, successful.
Yeah, mate. And I think there's a couple of things that I'd love to unpack there a little bit because, for anybody listening or watching, as you mentioned at the start, it is definitely a golden period, right, in terms of digital, social media, and you're leveraging that to grow a business as part of your advertising mix. So one thing, one topic that I'd like to sort of touch on is around, agency and how businesses can tap into that in order to help them grow their business. But the other thing that I'd also like to point out is the fact that you also mentioned that being CEO of a multi-award-winning agency, but not being a massive social media user yourself or not coming from that background, to me, when you say that, that really strikes a thought in my head around how important the different talents are in growing a business, right? Because you are the CEO of a large agency, a very successful one, but it's not like you're the strategist that's in there creating ad campaigns every day, right? So I think for any business owner, and even for myself out there, it's each portion of a business and each department needs its own talent pool, doesn't it? They need specific skills, you need specific experience in order to continue to grow the business and reach your objectives. So I'd love to kind of, unpack that a little bit more from your perspective, because I think a lot of the times the small business owner tries to do everything, tries to wear all the hats, tries to be across everything, and that can be to the detriment of the business. Would you agree with that?
I would absolutely agree with that. And I think that that's a fundamental law and a fundamental challenge across entrepreneurship and across business. I can't remember the last stat that I read. It was something like 96 point something percent of all agencies in Australia are 5 people or less.
Yeah, wow.
That's a massive amount. And that 5 people mark is actually a bit of a universal number across all industries when it comes to SMEs, right? You'll find that, of the 2 million plus small businesses in Australia, the vast majority, I'm talking to within a few percent of 100%, will be 5 people or less. And that's because of the reason that you just spoke about, just now. It's really hard when you start a business because generally what happens is you start a business, this is what most people do. They start a business that they know and they understand that they're good at. And they grow, and they're an integral part of each of the processes. Then what happens is, as they get a bit busier, they tend to bring on people. And what people naturally tend to do is bring on people to do the jobs that they are either A, not good at, or B, don't like doing. Okay?
Yeah.
So, it might be bring on somebody to do admin because, hey, fuck answering the phones all the time. I don't want to have to do that. I don't want to have to do all that paperwork. They might bring on somebody to do bookkeeping because they don't want to do the bookkeeping. And, small business owners tend to bring in these people to fill out these other jobs. And then what they like to do is they tend to hold on to the jobs that they love to do for a couple of reasons. One, because they enjoy doing them.
Yeah.
So I totally get that. But 2, they may be so good at a job that they know that if they hire somebody else, they're not going to be able to do as good a job as the founder. And the reality is they don't have to do as good a job as you as the founder in order to build a successful business. In fact, there is a 99% chance that they won't do as good a job, right? They only need to do, kind of the universal law is, they only need to do 80% as good a job as you 80% of the time, and that will be good enough. And it's such a confronting part of, being a business owner, letting go of a task to somebody else and knowing you could do a better job. But if you constantly think with that mindset, you will be stuck like 95, 96% of other small businesses in Australia. You'll never grow. You need to unlock yourself from the business, be at peace with somebody doing a good enough job, and that will allow you to sort of grow and develop. So for me, coming in, I didn't need to know about social media. I had no experience in finance before I became a CEO of a very, very large finance company. Had no experience in the medical device industry before I took it from 7 people to about 120 people. The laws of business are universal, and the key was I just tried to hire people that were better than me at all the stuff I wasn't good at, and almost as good as me at the stuff I was good at, and just kind of kept growing. So it's an interesting topic. That one just in itself, we could probably talk about an hour, but just that sort of mindset that traps a lot of entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and look, and that's a beautiful segue, obviously, into the industry that we are in with agency, and helping businesses, take their digital to another level, right? Being the expert that can come in and not only do more for them and achieve better results, but it's unlocking that constraint that a business owner has, whether it's time, whether it's skill, whether it's expertise, but that's the concept that we all often struggle with, and we all need to try and wrap our head around and unlock if we do really want to achieve that business growth. For some businesses, of course, it's not the case. They're happy doing what they're doing, and that's fantastic. But for anybody who really does want to get to that next level, it's about and I think actually Brett says this often, it's who, not how, right? So I think that's one of the key things. So I'd love also to get your perspective, mate, on where digital marketing is sitting at the moment, in Australia or globally, but what is the current state of digital marketing in your eyes?
So firstly, off the back of COVID's been amazing for our industry. COVID has been an accelerative force within the world of digital, and that's been really exciting. And the great thing about that is it hasn't created a bubble. It hasn't created a desire that's then suddenly going to dissipate and go back down. It's really kind of brought the need for digital forward 3 years and squished it into like a 6-month period.
Yeah.
So firstly, I found it to be a very exciting time. It's just really fast forwarded what businesses were learning, and that is the importance of digital. And I think that there's thanks to COVID, there's been a real shifting of consciousness within the business community about what digital really is.
Yeah.
Because up until COVID, you talk to a lot of business owners and you talk about digital. In their mind, digital was posting on a Facebook page, having fans on Instagram, or writing a blog article on their website. So then when they heard digital, that's what they thought about. And when somebody said to them social media, they thought about doing a few posts on Facebook. That shifting of consciousness has now moved away from that towards, digital is actually a way to drive revenue and bottom line performance for their business. So I've seen a massive shift, just in the conversations that we're having professionally, conversations sort of with my friends and with my network about what digital actually is. So I think it's starting to make a lot more sense to business owners in terms of what it can really do. I mean, for us, we're a digital growth agency. When we sit down with clients, we're trying to solve their macro business problems using digital as a tool, but everything is tied back to driving revenue. Yes. So when we partner with clients, it's all about driving revenue. We don't work with clients. We don't even offer a service where we'll post to your Facebook page. We don't offer a service where we'll help you get Instagram followers. All we do, across our entire service offering is help people drive revenue. So I think that digital is in demand. more than ever. And when I say digital, I mean, generally the driving of revenue, and certainly to a lesser extent, digital as it applies to connecting people with brands.
Yes.
Digital was always kind of like the second or third cousin. Now it's really the first cousin. And for a lot of brands, it's a primary way that they connect with their consumers. So there's been a lot of shifts. It's certainly not over yet. Obviously, a massive amount of advertising dollars continues to swing from above the line media into digital. And it's an exciting time to be in amongst that, It's kind of still a bit like the wild, wild west. It's fun.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%, 100%. We're experiencing the exact same thing. We've had more inquiry the last 2 months than we've ever had, and I think it just last year 2020 really just hit home to businesses that the importance, as you said, of having a digital presence and a way to do business digitally. Unfortunately, so many industries have been impacted and affected, and it's just sped up the game. And it's increased demand. And for all the businesses out there that are still plugging away, it's hats off to them. Keep pushing forward and really focus on that growth. One other question I'd love to ask, mate, is just from a business owner's perspective. How should somebody who's listening in, they're contemplating it, they want to take their business to the next level, their digital and their social is not where they want it to be. What are some of the first steps people can take in order to find and B, partner with an agency, in particular, the right type of agency? Like, where do people start? Have you got any tips or advice around that?
You know what? That's one of the biggest problems that we face in our industry. And with AttentionMedia, being a great agency down there in Victoria, you'll find the same thing. One of the biggest challenges in our industry is the noise. Okay? And what happens is, and we call them Sallies, right? And to us, a Sally is somebody that decides that she loves social media, so she jumps online and does a 10-hour free social media course. She jumps on Freelancer and gets a website built for $100, and suddenly, digital marketing agency specializing in this, and she's working out of her mum's spare room.
Yeah.
Right. And that's cool, and I love that, and I love the hustle, and I love the startup. So I'm not putting that down. However, the challenge is that when a business, a small business or a mid-sized business, is then looking for a partner agency, if you look at somebody like us, at Claxon, somebody like you guys at AttentionMedia, and you look at Sally, it can actually be really hard to differentiate on face value who is actually great, who isn't, and who's average. So it is a real challenge because everybody's out there swinging or kind of waving the same flag. Okay. Probably one of the first pieces of advice I would give, more from a fundamental perspective, is the generalist versus the specialist. Okay. There's a reason that GPs are paid a lot less and know a lot less than specialists in the medical field, So my advice would be, first off, to really have a think about what you want. Okay? What is it that you're looking for? Are you looking for more brand awareness? Do you want more people just to know who you are? Are you looking to make more sales online because you're an e-commerce store? Are you looking to generate more leads? Are you looking to get your name out there within a specific area or to a specific business because you're looking at winning them as a client? So I think the first thing you've got to understand is, what do you want to do? Or, do you have a great product, but your content sucks because you're at home doing it with your old iPhone and you don't know what you're doing. So probably the first thing is, try to have a real good think about what is it that you want to do. And if you want to do everything, then that's completely cool too. But you might just want to do content. And, if you've got a good sort of flow and you're, really active on your socials, but your content sucks, then try to find an agency that actually specializes in content.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or, if you want to grow your following online and it's just an organic play and you don't want to worry about the paid social or the paid search, try to find an agency that sort of specializes in that. That's probably the fundamental advice. Try to go to a specialist where you can. There's obviously the benefit of going to a generalist, and if it's a small business and this is their first foray into digital, a generalist can be a good solution.
Mm-hmm.
But you've also got to be careful, because whether you're a quality agency like you guys are, or whether you're a Sally, as a brand, they're going to be having the same conversation with you. So ask to speak to some of their clients, have a look at their reviews, do a little bit of due diligence, have a look at what sort of clients they have. That's probably the best way to give you an idea. And also the price. In this industry, it's a service industry, okay? We're not a tech industry, we're a service industry. And what that means is when somebody engages an agency, they're basically paying for man hours.
Yeah.
May not always be charged that way, but they're always paying for man hours.
Mm.
And if somebody says to you that they're going to charge you $200 a month or $300 a month to do all this work, you've just got to think about the fact that even if they were paying themselves bottom dollar and it was $50 an hour, bottom dollar, then that's only like 4 or 5 hours in a month that they would have to spend on your campaign. So, depending on sophistication, we can spend over 100 hours a month on a particular client easily.
Yeah.
So in this industry, you really do get what you pay for. Mm. And when you go bottom of the barrel, you're just going to get worse than nothing. There's a high chance you're going to damage your brand. You're going to set you back, months. They're going to waste your money. So price is usually, not always, but usually an indicator of quality. So that would be my second piece of advice. Focus not on price, focus on cost, because for the sake of saving $500 or $1,000 a month, you could be losing tens of thousands of dollars of revenue from not having the right partner.
Yeah, I love that. One thing I've been saying it for a while now, actually, but one thing I say is that if the amount of money that you are investing into your marketing doesn't make you slightly uncomfortable as a business owner, chances are you're not spending anywhere near enough. So, it's one of those things, again, where as a business owner, we need to look at our business and go, right, well, if we want to, increase revenue by 50% or 100% over X period of time, what sort of investment do I need to make in order to achieve that? And again, if we're talking, as you mentioned before, and we hear it so many times, services, whatever service it is, but a couple $100 a month for this and for that, you just need to look at that and go, right, well, realistically, is a couple of $100 going to, increase my revenue by 100%? Like, it's just the reality of that situation is just, it's as plain as day. So that's one of the things to look at. And I think another one of the things is that, again, really hard for business owners, but you can see, so as you said before, the noise that's out in the marketplace, and you can see and find so many success stories where, people, whether it's case studies or testimonials or whatever, people have spent, small amounts of money and had, great amounts of success, massive amounts of ROI. And that kind of sets a tone or a subconscious benchmark for business owners, saying, oh, look, they spent $1,000 and generated $100K in revenue. Like that, I want social to do that for me, right? And it just sort of sets those unrealistic expectations. So it kind of, for me, it's about, trying to educate our clients on what kind of investment they need to make in order to achieve their business objective, and just look at that and do the due diligence, and use that information to find the right agency, regardless of the industry, but find the right fit for you. Do you kind of subscribe to that as well?
Absolutely. there are some really misaligned expectations from uh, small business and even mid-sized business owners.
Yeah.
We turn away a lot of business at Claxon, and that's generally when people come and they have those unrealistic expectations. Well, I saw that somebody spent $1,000 and made $100,000, and that may have been the case, and that's great. It may not have been, but it's also about the ability to deliver sustained performance and growth over time.
Yeah.
People come to Claxon because they want a long-term strategic growth plan. They don't just want to spend a little bit and try to get a little bit of a injection of extra revenue. And I think that businesses have to remember that, and these are businesses that want to grow, right? Businesses that have a growth mindset. A lot of businesses don't want to grow.
Yeah.
A lot of businesses have, maybe a sole trader, or they've got a few staff, or maybe they've got 5 staff or 10 staff, and they're making okay money and they're happy sort of cruising.
Yes.
And hats off to those people, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But for business owners that want to grow, what comes first, the chicken or the egg, which is the revenue or the partnership with somebody that knows what they're doing, right? You've got to invest in the partnership with somebody that knows what they're doing to drive the revenue.
Yeah.
Okay. Because your revenue, you're not just going to wake up doing the same thing day in, day out. You're not just going to wake up and next month your revenue's up 50%, unless there's a specific reason. You're not going to wake up and then keep doing what you're doing, and then another couple of months' time, bang, your revenue's doubled. It just doesn't work like that, right?
Yeah.
Revenue's not just going to flood itself to you. You need to do something to allow it to flood itself to you. And you know what? Are you going to have to go and maybe find that money up front to partner with a professional agency like Attention or like Claxon? Absolutely. Right? But as a business owner, if you didn't have that mindset of being prepared to do something like that, you wouldn't be in business for yourself anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Because nobody starts a business without a little bit of an investment up front. And if you want to invest in your business and you want to see it grow, you've got to do the same thing. You might need to go get out a bank loan for 30 grand, 50 grand, 60 grand, borrow 40, 50 grand off your parents, do something to invest that up front for the right partner, for the right advertising spend, to then be able to generate the revenue, and then it becomes self-sustaining.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But got to commit to that right partner first. And I think that's why a lot of people don't, because they're like, oh, I've probably only got a couple of $100 spare. Let's see what I can get for my money. And you're going to get a couple of $100 worth of value.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. Lots of gold right there. And I think hopefully that kind of helps clear the waters a little bit for anybody who's tuning in. Mate, would love to switch topics a little bit and talk around the, your day-to-day role. So more along the lines of the commercial aspects of running an agency, right? Your bread and butter, your day-to-day, the thing that you're clearly very, very good at. Talk to us about that.
So it's interesting, that the higher up you move within an organization, the less tasks you actually have to do, but the greater weight of responsibility of those tasks.
Yes.
So it's really interesting, if I looked at sort of my tasks throughout the day, and I grab, that's my notebook, so it's like one day and another day here. If I looked at, our admin girl, I looked at our ops girl, even I looked at our digital strategist, their list would be 5 times as long.
Yes.
So it is really sort of interesting, and it doesn't change because I've led organizations with, 250 people, and the task list day to day isn't as much as important as making sure that everything's on track. And it's really around the leadership and the steering of people. And most tasks sort of in that day-to-day CEO role really revolve around just giving things a little bit of a tweak here, sitting in on a meeting, giving a little bit of perspective here, being involved with kind of shifting the strategic plan of a department like 1%. It's all of that sort of stuff. Yeah. And, running an agency is no different than running a finance company, is no different than running Any company, it's all the standard 4 pillars of business: people, product, process, and profit.
Yeah.
And those 4 pillars are really universal, and that's what allows successful CEOs to travel between industries, and you get people coming into the CEO roles of the big 4 banks that don't come from banking.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they may come from a completely different industry, but the rules of growing a successful business are the universal rules. Firstly, you're only ever as good as your people.
Yeah.
That's such an important part. You could have a great product offering, a great price point, but if you've got the wrong people, then it's far harder to succeed. They're not going to do good work.
Yeah.
They're not going to enjoy coming to work, which means they're not going to give a great customer experience or client experience.
Yes.
You're going to have a high staff turnover, which means that you're going to be hard pressed to find that real deep level of knowledge and understanding that employees have once they've been at an organization for sort of north of a couple of years.
Yeah.
It can be a real challenge. So the first thing is, you've got to hire good people, and you've got to be prepared to pay the money for good people, and it's absolutely worth the investment.
Yeah.
And sorry, mate.
No, I was just going to say, we talk people, and culture is obviously a massive buzzword, and how important is company culture, the relationship between a CEO and the rest of the talent members involved in the business. How much time does that consume, in your role? Where does that sort of sit in the importance level?
Culture is so incredibly important. When we interview for staff here, even for the most junior roles, we run a minimum of 2 interviews, usually 3.
Yeah.
That's for the most junior roles. So when we hired Greg, who's our Chief Strategy Officer, it was a 6-step interview process.
Yeah, wow.
All intentional, purposeful steps. But a couple of those big steps are around culture. We've struggled to find the right talent on the Gold Coast. It's been one of our biggest constraints commercially, is finding talent, especially digital strategists, right? So for us, a digital strategist is somebody that's on the tools, really doing the implementation side of paid social, predominantly, or paid search.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's been a real struggle and real challenge for us. And there's 2 problems. There's one, finding somebody that has the technical experience, then 2, finding somebody that's a culture fit. And I remember back just over 2 years ago, we were only, a year and just over a year old. And we had this big group of clients that we were waiting to bring on. Okay. But we didn't have the resource, we didn't have the manpower to be able to bring them on at that time. So put ads out on Seek, went through rounds of interviews, got to the very last one, and I decided that there was no one in that shortlist that was going to suit.
Yeah, wow.
So put the ad out on Seek again. The second round of interviews, keep in mind that from this, you'll know from your own experience as an agency owner, putting it out on Seek, so going through some interviews is really a sort of a 4-week process.
Yeah.
So we put out that second round of ads, went through the interview process for the second round, didn't find anyone we were happy with. So we put out the third round of ads, and we hired at the end of that third round. Now, at that time, that was around the end of October from memory.
Yep.
We had clients scheduled into March to start their setup.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Almost 6 months away. And we still weren't prepared to bring on the wrong people just to get the work and the money in the door. So culture is incredibly important. It's really that unseen energy that binds a team together and determines whether it's just a team or a high performance team.
Yeah.
We do things daily to make sure that, we're tuning our culture, because culture isn't just one, a group of sort of major events. It's all the little micro interactions and events. That's really what forms culture. So, our morning huddles that we have every morning, our monthly team awards, our Made It Happen sessions on Friday.
Yep.
So for me in my role, it's a lot of the time it'll be around things like, if I see that a team member's been working their ass off, right? I'll just go grab them and I'll take them downstairs and I'll have a coffee or I'll buy them lunch. Or I'll pull them into my office and just be like, hey, I just really want to let you know that, see what you're doing, appreciate what you're doing. This is what I've noticed, and give them that recognition. So, from me, from a culture perspective, it's more of those little interactions with the team rather than anything sort of particular, like Tuesday, 1:00, check on culture. It's not like that.
Yeah,
exactly. It's a constant. It's an ongoing. Yeah, love that. We had a similar situation last year as well when we were last doing a hire for a digital strategist, and we had candidates apply. We went through our interview process, which has a couple of rounds as well, and we had a candidate who we chose. We made the offer to, and turned out, and again, yes, as you mentioned before, this is over kind of a 4 to 6 week period, and we really needed the extra capacity, and then that candidate came back and said that they decided that it wasn't the right fit, and that's basically where it ended. So we had to start that process again. But I think it really does come down to making sure, and regardless of the business that you're in, whether it's hospitality, whether it's real estate, whether it's trade, it's hiring the right people from the start and taking the time to do it right, because it's only going to benefit you in the long run.
Absolutely. And I think that applies to all businesses, One of the challenges that we have in our industry is trying to determine who really does and who doesn't know what they're talking about isn't always incredibly easy through the interview process, because there are a lot of people out there that, one of the questions we ask in an interview, we always find it interesting, is out of 10, when it comes to Facebook advertising, where do you rate yourself? And we say, listen, this is what a 1 would be, this is what a 5 would be. And invariably, people always rate themselves to an 8 or 8, 9 or 10.
Yeah.
And these are people that can't even answer kind of the fundamentals of digital marketing. So, I think that it's important in any industry, but we have a few more barriers within ours. Yeah. And I think that's one of the challenges for people that are looking to hire internally. One, it's hard for us to determine if a candidate knows what they're talking about. Mm-hmm. For a business owner that doesn't have anywhere near the same level of knowledge as we do, it's impossible to tell.
Yeah.
You just have to go off their word, and that's incredibly dangerous. Mm-hmm. So I think that the argument, even as a small business, for do I employ someone internally or do I partner with an agency, is for me always in favor commercially of partnering with an agency, because one, you're not going to know who you're looking for in the first place, and hiring the wrong person can just be disastrous. And two, even if we took our most experienced digital strategist and we put them in a client's business, right?
Yep.
They will never, ever, ever do as well as we would as an agency, because the true benefit comes from the collective knowledge, okay? Not just from that one person. It doesn't matter how good that person is. You engage an agency because you're getting the collective knowledge, and no one person or no 2 people or no 3 people can ever represent the collective knowledge of 20 or 25 or however many people are at that agency. And when as a small business you can engage an agency for the same cost as one person, but get all the knowledge and learnings of 5 or 10 or 20 or however many people it is, it's just a no-brainer.
Yeah. exactly. You are literally bolting on that marketing agency to your business, as you said, that comes with all of the expertise, all the knowledge, rather than just the single person who potentially there's just as much risk involved there, if not more, as you said.
Because who are they going to bounce your ideas off? Who are they going to learn from? How are they going to grow? Who are they going to sit down and have their collaborative brainstorming sessions with?
Yeah. Yep. And I think like we can see as well how the digital platforms are changing so much, and there's so much more that's happening just from a from a governance perspective, from a privacy perspective, everything that's happening at the moment with Facebook and Google, the news media bargaining code. There's so many changes that are going on in the industry across all the different platforms that it's a full-time job just keeping up with those changes, let alone executing on that platform. So again, the reason, like everybody goes out and hires an accounting firm or uses HR, it's the same scenario with marketing, because you're able to tap into those extra resources, those skills, and the people that are working in it day in and day out.
There's a reason why 80% of all the world's biggest brands have agency partnerships.
Yeah.
Because to get that same collective knowledge, they'd have to hire an internal team of 20, 30, 50 people. And commercially, that just makes no sense at all,
Yeah, exactly. Success leaves clues.
It does.
Mate, I'd love to kind of just round this conversation out by finishing up with some of the biggest news that's just been released around your position, if you're happy to talk about that.
Yeah, so I announced a few days ago now that I'm actually going to be stepping down as our CEO. That's a really interesting choice for me, and obviously for my business partner, Brett, who's already sort of been on this podcast. From day one, when we decided to open the doors at Claxon, which was then called Campbell Media Group before we rebranded, everything was done intentionally, right? We had our first 3 years planned out before we even had day one.
Yeah.
So for us, sort of planning and executing on that plan is very important. And one of the things that I wanted to make sure of, as did Brett from the beginning, is that we didn't build ourselves in too much.
Yes.
Okay? Because we also recognize that the agency may get to a time where it might have outgrown us and we may need to bring in different talent to lead the agency through its next phase. So, we've got really aggressive growth plans over the next 3 years for the agency. Extremely aggressive. And, for me and Brett, we both felt that, where we've taken the agency to up until now is something we're incredibly proud of. But for my role, I know that I could get us to where we need to go, but I also know that somebody with significant agency experience that's been there, done that many times over, is going to get Claxon there faster, probably avoid a lot of the pitfalls that we may fall into. And that's more than being able to say, hey, I'm the CEO of my own company, which is lovely. But what I really want is for Claxon to continue to grow and to thrive and really look to establish ourselves as the category king within the performance marketing space, not just in Australia, but globally. And, one of my long-held beliefs is that you can't teach experience. And, I'm aware enough to know that somebody will allow us to get there faster than I will. And that's what I want for the team. That's what I want for the business. So it's a really exciting step for me. It's sad in one way, but only a little bit. The rest is filled with excitement about the possibility and the future plans, and I know that somebody else brings a different way of doing things, and everything can always be done better, right? I know that everything that we do in our business, we could improve upon. So the idea of having somebody come in that has that greater level of experience is amazingly exciting. Some of the applications we've had come through already would just blow your mind. They're just like industry titans. And the thought of having that sort of caliber steering the ship is an amazing feeling.
Yeah, mate, I think I love the fact this has happened because it's basically the underlying theme of this entire podcast, right? Is, again, like we mentioned before, is who, not how. And it all comes back to, it's a testament to yourself as well as the CEO of a very successful company, having the self-awareness and the humility as well to say, realistically, there is another person out there who could do this better, faster, and easier than myself, and to take that sideways step and allow that person to do that. So it ties back into our whole conversation around, do you hire an agency? Do you try and do it yourself? And for me as a business owner as well, it's there's massive learnings in that to take away from that regardless of the role in the business, if you really are looking for business growth and to achieve certain objectives, you need to have that self-awareness and that humility to say, who's the right person for this role, who's got the experience, and make the choices that you need to make. So congratulations, mate. Well done. Thank you.
I appreciate that, and it's going to be exciting to see how things sort of unfold and who ends up sitting in the chair. And it's really the start of our scale-up journey. I'd say that we've just sort of finished the startup journey. 3.5 years, we're mature. Within the business, we're stable, and the next phase is scale-up. So. We're going to need some help doing that effectively, and we're looking for that help right now.
Mate, it's been a fantastic conversation. Really appreciate your time. There's so much that people can take away from this episode, including myself. Where can people find out more about yourself and Claxon?
Jump on our website, which is claxon.agency. So no .com, no .au or anything like that. Just claxon.agency. You can find me on LinkedIn. Apart from that, my social media, I'm not on Instagram talking about stuff. I'm not on Facebook talking about stuff. I've probably got a couple of hundred people on both of those platforms, but LinkedIn is the one that I am sort of pretty active on. So have a look for me at LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with you or have a chat to you, and anyone can reach out to me about anything. I always reply to any messages that I get, unless they're big robotic like spam messages
don't do that.
Are like 100 feet long. I don't do that, but reach out, say hi.
Yeah, mate, again, really appreciate your time, and we look forward to watching Claxon in its next chapter.
Thanks, Anthony.
So that's it for another episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. As we mentioned, we'd love to get your thoughts and feedback on this episode. You can do that by heading over to our Instagram at AttentionMedia Agency and letting us know what your thoughts. Send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. We'd also love to know what you'd like us to talk about in upcoming episodes. So send us your topic ideas. We are always interested. And if you'd love to know more, head over to the website AttentionMedia.com.au. That's all for now. We'll see you in the next episode.